Hi, I'm Tom Keifer, and we are at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio.
Tom, your career goes back decades now. Can you reflect a little bit upon it and take us back to the beginning, what your initial aspirations were when you first started playing music?
Well, I started playing music at a pretty early age. I started playing guitar when I was 8 years old.
Right.
And I took lessons. My mom had a teacher come to the house, and she bought me like a three-quarter size Harmony acoustic guitar. And the teacher taught me to the basic chords, and he brought songbooks when he'd come. And he would actually make me, not just teach me the guitar, but he'd make me sing the songs.
Right.
So it was like Beatles songs and American folk songs and some gospel songs and stuff. So, you know, when I look back to that and I look at where I ended up as kind of being a singer, songwriter, guitarist, I think those were more like song lessons,
Right,
as opposed to just guitar lessons.
I can see that.
So I think that was my foundation early on, was songs as opposed to just guitar. And then, you know, when I got older and into my teen years, and I first heard Zeppelin and Janis Joplin and Aerosmith and, you know, all that amazing music of the late 60s and 70s is what, you know, I was in high school,
Right.
middle school, high school at that time. That's when I wanted an electric guitar, and I started learning, you know, teaching myself the blues licks and stuff. And so, you know, it just kind of formed into, you know, ultimately what, you know, I turned out doing, which was writing, playing, and singing the songs. It's kind of always felt like one thing to me, all three. So.
Right.
And you know, I mean, the early days with Cinderella, it was just it was pretty mind blowing to have. I always describe it as like this. It felt like this tornado kind of swooped down and picked us up and took us on this crazy ride, because things happened so fast in the '80s. You know, with the visual aspect that MTV brought to things.
Right.
You know, and you know, it's just careers. Even though there was years that went into, you know, writing night songs and developing the craft, once the lightning struck in the '80s, it would go from here to here.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So it was crazy. I mean, it felt, you know, like this just magical journey that we all got launched into. And you know, what's cool about it is that we toured so much behind those records, and it was all about touring for a lot of the bands, and particularly us. I mean, we would do 2 years tour, 2-year tours behind records, and you know, we made a lot of friends, thousands and thousands of friends and fans who still to this day are. It's just an incredibly loyal fan base. And I'm just beyond grateful to this day that I can walk out. You know, for years with Cinderella, walk out on stage and they come out and they're singing the songs, and now with my solo band, they're still coming out in droves and singing the songs, and are just excited about the Cinderella material and the new stuff, and it's just you know, I feel very blessed. So.
What about the hardship that you've had to overcome with your voice and things like that? What has that been like for you?
Well, that was, you know, I was told it's a very long story, and it lasted years, you know, trying to overcome it. But ultimately, kind of at the peak of Cinderella's career would have been Heartbreak Station. We were out touring for that record. And we were, you know, I think in the studio we had really reached that sound that we've been looking for, the kind of rawer, more classic sound that we were trying to get away from, that slick 80s thing, and we evolved into that. The record had really great critical acclaim. We were out doing a tour, and it's just, man, we're starting to, you know, maybe get things right here, you know. And then all of a sudden, like overnight, I woke up one day and I couldn't sing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like nothing.
Right.
And it wasn't the kind of thing where, well, you just need to rest your voice and then it'll be okay. I could rest it for 6 months and it still wasn't there. So it wasn't a wear and tear thing. And long story short, you know, so many doctors, witch doctors, all kinds of people trying to get it fixed. And I was finally diagnosed with a paresis, which is a fancy medical term for a paralysis, partial paralysis of my left vocal cord.
Yeah.
And it's something that's not easily spotted in the normal office exam. So the prognosis that came with that was that you're never going to sing again.
Right.
And if you do, your voice will never be like what it was there's no medical cure for it, no surgery, because it's neurological, so there's no medicine, there's no surgery that can fix it.
Right.
Your only prayer is to work with speech pathologists, vocal coaches, and try and train the cord to work properly again.
Right.
Which is not an exact science, and most singers, once they get this condition, they're done.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, that was started a long 10, 15, 20, you know,
Right.
almost 20 years
Yeah.
before I really overcame it. It was up and down. I would get to a point where I could go tour, and then I'd get knocked down again because it was just like this. You know, you think you're gaining ground.
Right.
That's the most frustrating thing. You think you're getting somewhere, and then you realize that you're not. And eventually, through working with a lot of people and putting together different programs from different coaches, I've worked out a way to make it work.
Right. Yeah.
And it's working. You know, most nights now it's as good, if not better, than it was before the condition.
Right.
So never an ill wind that doesn't do some good, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't blow some good. Because I learned so much about singing and technique from that. Now that I have it kind of working again, or I've tricked it into, like, you know, behave.
Yeah, yeah.
Now all that technique and training, I have that on top of what I had before, and so it's evolved into something that, you know, I feel lucky that I was able to overcome that, but it was years of torture.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like not cool.
Just one last question. I mean, do you feel like you're creatively maybe at a peak or at a really great moment at this time? I mean, it seems like you're writing new songs and regularly touring, and it you know, a lot of bands will just sort of rest on what they've done in the past, but it seems like you continue to write new material and explore that.
You know, the music for me is a form of expressing real emotions, and I've always taken it, you know, I don't take it lightly. You know, making a record to me is, you know, very cathartic.
Right.
And the solo record that we're touring behind right now, and this is our 4th year out behind touring it, because obviously the world's different now, and it takes a long time for things to seep in. That record took 10 years to make.
Yeah.
And I produced it with my wife, Savannah, who was in here, who's also part of the touring band. And, you know, some people think that's crazy, but to me, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I'm proud of that record, and it's been received very well by the fans and the press. So, you know, it's, I think when you're creating the music, you don't stop until you feel good about it. So whatever that process is, every record I've ever been involved with has been a crazy process.
Right.
You know, starting with the Cinderella ones, working with Andy Johns. I mean, some of the stories I could tell you, what we went through to make those records and make them the way they were. And this one was no different. I think it took 10 years because we produced it independently, so we didn't have a record company breathing down our neck.
Yeah.
The idea was, we're going to make a record, and then when we like it, we'll find someone to distribute it. So we had completely free reign. So and I would have to say, I don't think I'd want to spend that long again on a record, but I would say, in terms of the performances and what we ended up with on this record, I have fewer artistic regrets about this one than, say, the previous ones that were, you know, we were in time constraints and budgets with record companies with the Cinderella stuff. So, and with this one, there wasn't.
Right.
So no stone was left unturned.
That's so great, Tom. Thanks for your time.